Good morning. Today is May 19, 2021. We're going to call the Legislative Committee to order. Can we have a roll call, please?
Allen, Bates,
Here.
Brown
here.
Silva's here.
Strathman present.
Shepro, Purog, and Gums.
She's here. All right. Good morning, everyone. The time now is 10:40. We're going to start our meeting off with a moment of silence for Steve. We lost Steve Chidester from King County Department of Transportation 2016. They did a presentation yesterday, and on behalf of the family to honor his memory, at 10:41, we'll take that moment of silence before we start our meeting. Pause and think about what we do when we get in our vehicles. So, moment of silence, please. Thank you, everybody. Bless you and your family. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Chairman Gum.
No crying. No crying.
Late. It's too late. I'm already there.
We're all crying.
Just say we've got a new system in building C and HVAC, and our side is broke, so it's 80 inside. So that I'm sweating. I'm not crying.
Oh, sure.
Thank you, everybody, for that. Like a motion to approve the minutes from April 21st, 2021.
Allen moves.
And a second.
Strathman seconds.
Roll call.
Allen,
Allen, aye.
Bates,
Aye.
Brown,
Yes.
Silva,
Silva, yes.
Strathman, yes.
Yes. All right. Do we have any public comment? Hearing none and seeing none, we'll go to old business. A little legislative update. The local government distribution fund opposition. We are opposed to that. Obviously, the governor's proposal to decrease our funding of 10% is not good for us, not good for any county. So we've done a resolution and sent a letter. I believe we sent that letter. Is that accurate? Madam Chair, have we sent the letter in opposition to the reduction in LGDF?
I just signed it yesterday, so it's going out in today's mail.
Very good. So that's done. Mr. Shepard.
Are the other collar chairs writing similar letters or in?
Microphone, please.
Are the other Collar County chairs taking similar positions in opposition?
Is my understanding there is quite a few people that are doing actually very similar language when they oppose this. So it's not good for any counties.
Yeah.
ISACO has taken a position on this as well.
Yes, we do have some representatives here from ISACO too. So they're listening, and Joe is on here. Joe, if you have anything you want to add, I believe he's online. Okay. Want to talk about the redistricting legislation. I'm sure all of you are reaching out to your representatives as requested to talk about the redistricting statute. I have gotten no further information other than to say that the state appears to be a little nervous about their decision on their map drawing. We have suggested, ISACO has suggested, other county lobbyists have suggested language to correct what we are confronted with. The obstacle in the language is clear. It does not, and is evident to me that it is not a priority for our legislators. That does not mean that I don't keep reaching out. I hope you all keep reaching out. We have deadlines on this. there is some opposition of the, how do I say, the data that we'll be using from certain groups, and they've expressed that. The language that was suggested by SACO and also our own folks, I think they can live with, the opposition can live with, is what I'm hearing. So if we can get it to the right people, it's really a simple thing. I know that sounds like it, maybe it's just me, but to me, it's a simple thing. But keep reaching out, find the right person, and we'll see what we can do. Mr. Shepro.
Shepro, I have heard in recent days that while it's still kind of unfocused, that there might be now some sentiment toward, among other things, potentially moving everything, including the primary, whereas 2 weeks ago, everybody was like, no, it's never going to happen.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
getting that inclination too, but proof's
Well,
in the pudding, so.
Right. And it seems to be connected with perhaps some increasing concern over whether using the estimates is going to work or not. So, and on that, I think we talked about it. It now appears that the so-called legacy date is going to be available in early August, which might eliminate the need for extensions, but we'll see, I guess. You're right. I mean, that's,
Kind of where we sit, so, yeah.
at
I'm not good at waiting and seeing.
11:59 on May 31st, something will
Right,
possibly come forward.
yes.
If I may, I did hear from the governor's office, a representative from the governor's office, and I posed those questions to her, and she confirmed exactly what you just said, Mr. Shepro, is that there is no bill number yet. It's simply being discussed, and that there may be a delay in the primary. But
I'm getting yeah,
that option is still just under discussion with no formality to it.
big deal, so yeah, but
It's very important for all of our clerks so they can
Oh.
define when that is going to happen and the future election.
I think I'm getting a nod on my head because I'm,
But as far as the data, it's still going to take some time to download it, to make sure it's well analyzed and presented in a fair manner, and to make sure that the MALDEF is going to be able to take a look at it and do the assessment. And I think that's one of the fears that I've read in the paper. I think that's public knowledge, that they are concerned about the plethora of potential lawsuits that may be coming their way.
MALDEF and a dozen others, apparently. I mean, it's,
Correct.
I'm of the impression that MALDEF is maybe able to swallow some new language, so we'll see.
Office, a representative from the governor's office.
I'm sorry, last person? Was that just feedback?
I think that was Alan.
Ms. Allen, did you have comment?
No, that was not me.
Oh,
Well, Mr. McCoy, I don't know if you're online, but if you had anything to add about the LGDF, or a correction, I moved on, sorry, about the redistricting, what's happening there, if you have any insight.
I am online. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you very much for the invitation, and thank you for your patience while I wrap something up and moved over here to join you, but I have been listening to the discussion. Mostly what I've heard you say is correct. So the issue now is, we're coming down to the last week and a half before adjournment. And the problem with redistricting right now is I'm not convinced the General Assembly has a solution for itself yet. And I think it's likely that they're probably going to apply the same or a similar solution to counties as they would for themselves. And so I think that's part and parcel of what the delay is all about. I have heard a couple of different rumors. One rumor is that they were having a discussion about moving the March primary. I'm a little bit more skeptical about that. And of course, that would move it to June of 2022 is what I'm hearing. But again, I'm more skeptical about that. I've also heard that they're still entertaining the prospect of using the American Community Survey data. I think there's quite a bit of concern about that because it's not as accurate as we all know. And I think the state and local governments might be subject to litigation from those that believe that whatever the maps came out of the use of that data might not be truly reflective of the communities. So I guess that puts us right back to square one, which is we're waiting on the General Assembly to provide some guidance and to offer a legislative fix when they're still trying to work on their own maps. As far as ISACO is concerned, we continue to share our two legislative solutions, the two legislative drafts with legislators. We provided it to the legislative leaders. We have written letters to each of the members of the General Assembly that have past service on county boards, thinking they would be natural allies. We have been talking to, Kane County and the other Collier counties and counties throughout the state, asking that they contact their legislators. And I know that is happening as well to one degree or another. And the key for us, I think, is we want to make sure that through all of our conversations with legislators and our interactions and communications with them, that when they go into caucus rooms, particularly the Democrats, since they control both chambers, when they go into their caucus meetings, that we've communicated our needs and that somebody or some buddies are standing up and saying, hey, wait a minute, let's make sure that we deal with the county issues because I understand they have a concern too. And as a matter of fact, here are a couple of different solutions that we could offer. We made sure that we weren't just complaining, we actually presented a couple of different options for them. So that's kind of where we're at. And I would just encourage you to continue talking to your legislators about it.
Thank you very much. I agree. We got to keep talking to them. I talk constantly to them, so I hope you all.
Shall Mike?
Oh, sorry. I hope you all continue to reach out and I mean, that's how we get to them. So we got to
Madam
talk to
Chairman,
them. Ms. Bates.
Do we know whom we need to keep calling and who's just on board? Is like getting a sponsor or not getting a sponsor?
Well, I think Lisa Hernandez is a good choice. I mean, I'm talking to people and saying, hey, if you know somebody who's essentially insured, if you know who to reach out to, the representatives that I'm speaking to that are not exactly engaged in the process, talk to your friends. That's I know it sounds a little silly, but talk to your friends and let's get them on board so we can get some action. The statement of don't worry, we will not leave you behind. I've heard that more than once now. That's great, but let's make it happen.
What's our exact ask right now? Change the words.
I couldn't hear you.
What is our specific ask?
Contact your representatives, go on to ilga.gov, use the toolkit for MySaco. It's extremely helpful.
I meant, what are the words that we want to ask? What are the words of our ask?
We need you to pass legislation.
To use the American survey data?
No, there's a lot more to it than that.
If I may, the two proposals that we have provided to legislators, the first one is language that would move the 2022 spring primary to the third week in June. So they have that, and that's again something they're discussing on their own to one extent or another. And the second proposal recognizes that the legacy data, the legacy file data, will be available from the Census Bureau in this August, and that after that data is acquired and tabulated by counties, counties can go ahead and use that accurate data to perform their reapportionment responsibilities. And so the second legislative draft that we provided creates some flexibility with, it moves some dates back to provide a little bit more time for counties, another 60 days, to produce the map. And it creates some flexibility with respect to petitions and also residency to accommodate the fact that we're kind of doing all of this on the fly a little bit, and that some people, who passed petitions, if their district changes a little bit, they don't want their petition challenged as long as the districts, touched each other, kind of common sense changes like that, so we can have an orderly process using accurate data, but reflecting the fact that the data is still, getting to counties later.
Thank you. Mr. Shepherd.
Well, I just, picking up on that, I would think that we would be telling the legislators to do what we have talked about publicly would be in the litigation that has been authorized. And I think what's just been outlined is what Mr. Lukahans had told us is the goal in the complaint, which is not to deal with the extending this primary or even the petition filing date, but to roll the other deadlines forward so that we can then meet them and have the accurate data. And I would think we'd want to be consistent in our approach with that.
Okay.
Did that answer your question, Ms. B?
That is the most prudent response.
Yeah.
Okay.
And remember that
Forward or
too.
backward?
No, we want to roll it forward.
Mr. McCoy is saying move it backward.
No, I don't think so.
He's saying move everything back 60 days,
Well, I think,
which is
well, I think he means back from now, you're forward, but that's forward. Because if we moved everything back, we'd already be out of luck.
We're just seeing it from opposite sides.
Yes.
Okay.
But again, the essence of what we were asking for is limited relief on the theory that we don't have to involve, if we're going to move the primary, you're talking about the other states, I mean, the rest of the state, other counties. We tried to focus on something that could be done in Kane County without affecting anybody else. And I really only the county board races, because they're the only ones that are impacted by the redistricting. Now, I don't think we discussed it, but theoretically, the city of Batavia or somebody who also has to redistrict before the election might want to participate, but that's not really a question for us to worry about.
The only, just a little deep dive into that, the only thing that would impact our local districts would be our precincts. So after we get the county board districts approved, then we have to go down to our precincts, and that's going to affect everybody with everything to see how that works out, because it's by precinct.
Yes. Though they're the deadline, there's no statutory deadline, it's more a practical deadline for drawing the new maps and having, because besides the voting districts, obviously under state law, the precinct committee person is an elected position, and therefore they have to know what their precinct is to circulate petitions. But both in the case of precinct committeemen and county board members, the signature requirement is relatively low as compared to, say, running for the state house or Senate, where you need, I think, 1,000 signatures for the Senate, 500 for the House. For the board districts, I think the number is going to be more like in the 35 to 40 range, and most of us have that many friends.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Ms. Strathman.
now I'm confused. Are we wanting to move the primary to June, or are we not wanting to move?
No.
Thank you. Wanting to move it to June.
Well,
We don't want to. What we want is tangible legislation that addresses the issues of us violating the law. That's as it sits.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
Shepro, individually, I think it would be good to have the primary later in the season. As it is, we have the earliest primary in the whole country. But I don't think that's part of our ask, because it's a different discussion.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Shepherd. What would I do without you? Any more questions or issues about redistricting? I don't think so. We're going to move on to new business. We got SB 1715, which is the forest Can't read today. Conserve, design, build, Ms. Castro. And we have somebody speaking on that today because I don't know enough about it. So is Mark here? Or no, it's Chris.
Caius, I believe,
Chris.
president of the King County Forest Preserve.
Go right
Yes.
ahead.
Well, I'll be really short because I believe that they didn't have the votes in committee, in the local government committee. And so they withdrew it as of yesterday. The vote was yesterday. But just quickly, it was a modification to the downstate forest preserve ordinances, that legislation that allowed the forest preserves to, instead of going through a double process of doing engineering and the contracting for buildings in forest preserves, it allowed a design build, which is to have one company do the whole thing all the way through, which would save money in the long run. And hopefully it'll come up again. It just gives us, we don't have anything planned in our forest preserve here in Kane County, but others, I talked with Daniel Hebriard, who's the president of the DuPage County Forest Preserve, who was pushing or working with this as well. And they have projects that are coming up, and it would behoove us, we could do it, as we found out with our multi-use building. It was a extra process to do all the engineering and all the, we could have done it quicker. Municipalities have that right, ability to do that. It's up to $30 million, I believe. So that's it.
Well, I'm sorry I didn't pass through.
Yeah, it's sort of like Mr. Shepro's thing, you know, by the time we get to do it, it's
Right.
already done. But it, hopefully it would have passed, and then we could have, then I filed witness slips and contacted DeWitt, who was on that committee, but they didn't have the votes, so.
Okay, thank you. All right. And then that actually addressed SB 1715
I
and
believe they're
HB
identical, yeah.
3160 that addressed both of those issues. So I will move on to SB 0084, which amends the county's code. And who's talking about that one? Who did I have talking about that? SB 0084.
Jepro, do we know what part of the county's code it's amending?
I think this is in reference to Ms. Bates. I thought this was
Nope, that's not mine.
renewable energy
I see.
legislative. Yes, but we have some, Mark, are you here?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Maybe it's not SB 0084. I'll get back to you on that one.
D I can handle. Mark and I can handle that one.
Let's go to D. I apologize.
I think D became E.
Right, but
Our
D and E
the
are
same thing.
combined. Okay. Yeah, so if you want to, your mic.
I turned it off. I thought I turned it on. So we have written a resolution, Mark and I together, requesting modification to Governor Pritzker's Consumer and Climate First Act. And this act is a 950-page act. So we would, oh, thank you. It is attached. So this resolution requests modifications to Governor Pritzker's Consumer and Climate First Act by removing language limiting Kane County's authority concerning setbacks and other conditions to ground-mounted solar projects. So we've discussed this in E&E and in development, and the bill has language that mostly, oh, here it comes, thank you, is, so the bill has language that would restrict our restrictions on where solar can be, ground-mounted solar can be put. Some of the language says things like it cannot be closer than 150 feet to the nearest property, the nearest buildings. And we would like to maintain our autonomy in this. So we're asking the governor to remove that language. I've called some of the people who are writing this bill right now, and they say that because they're trying to get a 950-page act passed, we will not be able to get this couple of sentences changed before May 31st, the day when session ends, but that we could work on that later. Am I supposed to do something? Would you like to join audio? No, I don't want, okay, sorry, my Zoom is doing something. Mark, would you like to add anything to that?
Yeah, only that, thank you for Board Member Bates for her great work on this, and Jody Walnick and other people that was brought to our attention. We do have, I think Joe McCoy is still listening in. I want to thank him also for his work in alerting the county zoning directors about this. It's created a bit of a buzz with the other counties as well. Also want to thank him because I received this morning some additional language that they're looking at working with the governor's office as well regarding the time frame restrictions that's also in the bill. John Martin brought that up at a development committee yesterday as a zoning attorney. He had concerns about the time frames in there as well. And I can speak more on that, but I see Mr. Shepro has his hand up, so I'll.
Well, actually, I have a question for you. Is this the bill that would take away zoning authority over solar energy and yeah,
This is the bill that is perceived to do that. But we would still, may I, Madam Chairman?
yeah, no.
Are we in free for all?
I got a lecture about this bill at a meeting the other day, but they didn't have a bill number, and I wasn't sure if this is, sounds like this is the same piece of legislation.
So right now, we're trying to combine 4 or 5 bills into a huge, comprehensive energy bill. The governor's bill, which is this consumer first bill, does have this language. It is, we would still have the right to say yes or no. We could approve or deny any solar installation and that we felt was inappropriate. The purpose of this language is, they're trying to make it more uniform across the counties for, it's for the solar developers to have the same language in every county. But as Mr. Armstrong and I discussed a lot, Van Kerkhoff, sorry. It appears from the language in the bill that this would only affect us if we had an ordinance having to do with solar panels and installations. We do not have that ordinance. Why don't you say this, Mark?
Madam Chair.
Just a point of clarification. I'm hearing something and reading something else. And the discussion we had yesterday also just does not reference solar fields, but it's also wind turbines.
That was what
So
I couldn't remember.
Ms. Bates, which one are we talking about? Is it just simply solar or is it wind and solar?
The section that was brought to our attention for the E&E committee and the development committee only referred to solar.
But your resolution does not. It refers to
Somebody
both.
edited my resolution.
Yeah, the overall language in the bill does deal with the large wind installations
Okay.
as well. And there was some concerns that brought up by Board Member Winnicki in the Development Committee discussion. So the application of those two types of alternative energy developments in Kane County have been primarily solar rather than wind, but some of the same concerns in terms of the state giving a level of uniformity and control over setbacks, and then this other issue in terms of the time frame that the county board has to process a petition and make a decision by. I think are designed to overcome some of the perhaps overly restrictive conditions and ordinances that some counties have passed around the state that are not solar or wind friendly. But in our case, it really, we see it really restricting and handcuffing you as the county board and petitioners and property owners from really being able to do the genuine good and hard work of figuring out what's the best site locations, how there's the facilities that they want to construct, how does that best fit on that particular site instead of sort of a cookie cutter approach to setbacks and other kind of features.
Mr. Shepro?
Is this similar to what was done with respect to cellular towers some years back?
Yeah, that's probably a good analogy, although, those tended to be, a single location site that had a vertical impact, where solar and wind developments have a much more horizontal impact because of the areas that they take. The wind, obviously, both.
We are not
vertical
a
and-
big market for wind here. We are not attractive to the wind.
We're in a valley.
We're a dead spot for wind.
So with that, we also had some language that ISACO was floating about extending the time frame period. So that may be something, since John Martin brought it up at Development Committee as a concern also, that we could amend the language of the resolution that's in front of you to include requesting that they modify the timeframes for hearings as well. And I was able to capture that and put it on a slide if you care to see some of the language that Joe has put together with ISACO's team and floated by the other counties. I think he would appreciate any feedback on it. I had a chance to look at it quickly, and certainly trying to define more definition in terms of what they mean by the hearings and the timeframes would be helpful, I think. So I don't know if it's appropriate at this time to ask for someone to put a motion on the table for the resolution to discuss it or not.
Actually, your point of order is well taken. There should be a motion to
You're right.
put it on
Yes.
the table.
I apologize.
I'll make that motion.
A second.
I'll
Shepro.
second.
8 seconds. Okay. Sorry about that.
Oh, no problem. We definitely slid into that.
Yeah, we did. Sorry.
One thing, so I don't forget, very minor thing, in working with providing a resolution, captured a form from a previous resolution. So on the actual cover summary information, this is not the budget is not applicable, and the appropriation amount of $10,000 does not apply to this resolution. So that's more of a clerical thing, but I wanted to bring that to your attention. When it moves forward, it'll say not applicable and no dollar amount.
So what would you suggest we add to the draft in front of us?
Pardon
well,
me? What was your question?
So,
Repeat your question.
apologies. He had recommended we do an amendment to our current resolution.
And I'm-
Mr.
okay.
Shepro's asking what that recommendation would be.
Thank you. I was asking him, but that's good.
So two things. One, I think we can have the committee can have a discussion and give Joe some feedback on the time frames as he continues to work on behalf of all counties and gets additional feedback. But I think in sort of the more general language of the resolution, in the last whereas, where it says predetermined setbacks and prohibiting conditions limits the ability of petitioners, I think if we considered amending that to say, whereas predetermined timeframes for public hearings, setbacks and prohibiting conditions limits the ability, just to insert that concept of having them also modify the timeframes. And then the same thing would be in the therefore let it be resolved that the county board requests modifications to the proposed language that predetermines, and then insert timeframes for public hearings before predetermines and the word setbacks. So it'd be the same language in both paragraphs.
So we would need.
I would like to modify my motion with Ms. Bates' concurrence to read in the fourth whereas that the resolution is amended on its face to include whereas predetermined timeframes for public hearings, and then the remaining language. And then in the now fair be it resolved, add in the second line where it says predetermines timeframes for public hearings.
Actually, the fifth whereas.
Fifth whereas. Yes, fifth whereas. I take that as a friendly correction.
Question, please. So we will keep the wording only for solar. We're not going to add wind. I don't think it's necessary to add wind. So
You
we'll,
want to strike solar? I think the legislation covers both.
yes, it does, but this section that we're referring to was only about solar.
So is the idea that this is really a request for the governor to exercise his amendatory veto? Because otherwise we're missing the date because, June 8th is going to go to the board.
And I respect your knowledge of if Kane County is wind or not, but I don't know what future developments are going to present in technology. And if we eliminate wind from our resolution, we would have to do another resolution to include wind. So for the benefit of expediency and just protect future technology, is there any harm done by including wind on this?
I don't think so.
So I would support
Yeah.
keeping wind.
So do you agree with the amendment?
I agree with the amendment, yes. And I think Madam Chairman is asking for another amendment that would add wind.
No, we already
Already in
have
there.
wind
Yeah,
in there.
it's already-
It's not to delete wind.
Okay.
Yes.
So
In the
we can
first
get that
whereas.
language. in the
Yeah,
idea.
I think as written, it's written broadly enough to cover clean energy providers, including wind. It specifically says wind and solar. So we wrote it broadly enough to cover both. But I think in terms of the application of our concerns, we perceive it mainly going to impact solar. But it certainly could with wind, as Madam Chair pointed out.
The resolution does not contain specific language. Not that I think it has to, but, obviously, when they get this, they're going to say, what modifications are you asking for? So at some point, presumably, if we're working with others, we'd want to say, here's what we want you to sign, or here's what we want you to revise. That was Shepro commenting.
Are we,
But I don't know that we want to try to write that language into this resolution.
no.
But I presume you have, Mark, language that,
Yeah, so there's two things, and Joe's on the line. We appreciate that. I think one question that came up in Development Committee, the language in the bill as it's written now says that counties have, they're confirming the ability of counties to adopt ordinances specific to wind and to solar installations. And then it says if they do adopt such regulations, they can't be more restrictive than a laundry list of things from setbacks to landscape buffers to those kind of things. So one of the questions that came up at Development Committee was, since we treat solar and wind installations as a special use, simply as a list on our special uses, we have not adopted a specific set aside recipe or list of regulations, checklist of regulations specific for solar or wind special uses, whether or not those restrictions would apply since as being restrictive. In other words, would our open negotiation approach still be acceptable, or would that be in conflict with the state's ordinance? So that was one question. And then the other being the time frame, which Joe can maybe address a little bit. Blair, can you put the time frame slide up? It's the first one I sent you, the PowerPoint one. I want to thank Blair and Kelly. They're very accommodating to staff's last second request to get things up. So I literally got saw this language via email about 9:30 this morning, so it's great to be able to put it up on the screen for you. So Joe, maybe you want to explain some of the input you've gotten from other counties and your thoughts on the time frame.
Sure. So can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, good. So the dilemma that we have as we try to advocate for positive outcome on this issue is, we obviously don't like the restrictive language at all because we believe in local control, but that there's an inherent risk in that. If we just oppose that, we might be looked upon by the General Assembly as unreasonable, and they kind of shunt us aside and move forward with the language that industry proposed. So the gambit then is, are we better off, and this is the genesis of this language, are we better off trying to make the best of the worst situation, accepting the restrictions, but making sure that the dates work for counties so that you don't find yourself in a situation where you're saddled with a calendar and a timetables that you just can't make work. There's just not enough time. So I put together some suggested changes, which are really just a deferral of these dates to create a little bit more time. And I sent it out to several counties just to get some input. And the kind of the informal input I've gotten so far has been that these dates will probably work. There's certainly an improvement over the dates in the underlying bill, which underlying proposal, which you can see is the dates that are the numbers that are struck in the proposed legislation. So people seem to be telling me that these will probably work, but I'm still collecting that input because, again, we just don't want to get, if we can help it, saddled with anything that is just completely unworkable.
Thank you. Mr. Shepard.
It occurs to me that we ought to find a way to include that language. I don't think we want to try to sit here and do that now. So I would suggest, and if it's acceptable, change our motion again and move that we forward this to executive committee with a direction to staff to submit a revised draft that incorporates the timing issue and the specific requests for changes.
And when is executive? Yeah. It's next month.
Well, this would go to the June exec before the June 8th board meeting. Would go to the June 2nd executive committee.
I have a question or a comment. I'm not sure which. Okay. The session in Springfield will end on May 31st. So we have been using that as one of our deadlines, or even earlier than that.
Yeah, well, that's why I wondered about the June 8th, because you're going to be sending your letter after they've already acted.
Right. So I was hoping to get this passed from legislative today so that we could, well, I think Mr. Van Kerkhoff and I were both hoping to get this passed today and let's get something passed today in legislative so we could send it sooner than later.
I'm sorry, I was just reading the date on the.
It says on here that it was passed on June 8th. Yeah.
It still has to go through the committee process.
Okay.
So I like
Madam Chair,
to include, yes,
microphone.
I gotta be on top of it. I agree then at that level, we should include all the, this stuff. So I would concur with Mr. Shepro. I would concur with Mr. Shepro that, yes, we want to get this passed, but if we're looking at June 8th, getting it through committee,
You have plenty of time for, if it can't be done till
Yes.
then we have time for make
so would
changes.
you concur with that amended
I would
amendment?
concur with that.
This points up a problem that we've always had with the legislative committee process and the General Assembly, which is by the time we've gone through our process, it's often too late. It's certainly, I suppose, possible that the committee could vote to send a letter from
That's
the
what I
committee.
thought. That's what I was thinking we would.
I defer to Madam Chair as to whether it's a policy matter That's something she would like to see.
Well, it would have to be, if that is the case and this committee chooses to do that, I believe that that should be coming through the committee with signature from the committee and not representative of the entire board.
Mhm.
Correct.
Good. That's what I thought we could do.
You can do both. I mean, you can do that and you can still forward this for action by the full
Let's
board.
do both.
Since I'm hearing the suggestion that it's likely that they're not going to take the time to revise this before it gets to the governor's desk. So then you've got both approaches.
Right. I was told by some of the people who are helping to write the bill that this section has already been approved by the coalition that is writing the bill. So to go back and, I mean, they're handling such enormous problems that to go back and ask them to fix our little wording here probably wouldn't happen.
I mean, if
until
that's the case.
There's a rules stage, or there's a place where they reconcile the bill or something like that.
Well, only if the two houses pass different versions.
Yeah.
Then it's got to be reconciled between the two chambers, and then they have to vote on the revised bill.
Mhm.
But if there's,
But there's some revisions that happen even after the governor signs the bill, is that correct?
I don't know, I think
That's what I was told.
they will do what they call trailer bills, which is in the next session, they clean up what they did at 1 minute before midnight that, we didn't realize that.
There's a lot of good examples of that.
If I may, this is Joe McCoy. That is correct about trailer bills. And oftentimes, especially when you pass a bill that's in excess of 900 pages, there are going to be inherent problems that they may need to fix at a later date. So a trailer bill is certainly an opportunity to make a correction. But the other opportunity too, if we're unsuccessful in getting changes before May 31st, is we can always request that the governor mandatorily veto the bill, which means he's just goes in, he lines out some things, makes some changes, and then the General Assembly either accepts it or don't.
At this point, it seems to me that doing one letter from legislative and another resolution of the board is overkill, given what we think the situation is. And I guess I would then suggest that we go back to the idea of forwarding this with a staff direction to make changes, and we'll pass it. The governor is unlikely to sign it by June 8th, I would think.
So
But anybody is on the committee is free to send their own letter saying,
Sure, yes.
yeah.
So we would not send anything until after it goes to the full board?
Through committee process, correct.
But you can independently, and everybody here
Right.
can
And we've
send it independently.
We have done that ask of our committee persons before and reached out individually to do that ask. So I would help you with that.
Okay. All right, that sounds
So,
like the best way to do
Yeah.
it.
so as amended, our, what do we call this?
Did you get the revision? Probably not, because it was kind of incoherent. All right, I believe that the revised amended motion, the motion as restated would be to forward this resolution to the executive committee with a direction to staff to revise the resolution to incorporate the proposed modifications that we are requesting and to include language relating to inserting the timeframes for public hearings. And did that include everything, Mr. Van Kerkhoff?
Yes, we can definitely do that.
All right, then that would be my motion, and I would request the approval of Ms. Bates as
I
the
approve.
seconder.
Okay, so we call the roll. We're going to let her catch up, but we'll call the roll.
Madam Chairman, this is Deborah Allen.
Ms. Allen?
I just wanted to say that I thought this was beautifully written, and thank you to the people who did it. It's both courteous and it says why it's important to us to do it to do each application one at a time. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Allen. I can take zero credit for this. But thank you guys. I agree with that. So we'll take a roll call. I didn't think I heard.
Allen,
Alan, aye.
Gates,
Bates, aye.
Brown,
Yes.
Silva,
Silva, yes.
Strathman,
Strathman, yes.
Gums, yes. Do we have any comments from co-chair?
Yes, good morning, everybody. Would like to bring to your attention that our State Rep Barbara Hernandez introduced and just got a bill passed in the House. It's House Bill 155 to correct our legislation that says that with SNAP, which is the food supplement for people of low income, that with this, they are not allowed to buy feminine hygiene products. And this is something that it is quite expensive. They're also not allowed to buy diapers, which is amazing to me because those are both biological functions of human beings. But it has been passed from the House, and I'd like you to go on and do a witness slip and then support the new bill that as it goes to the Senate that would allow people on SNAP supplements to be able to buy feminine hygiene products.
That's
Want to
amazing.
give us the number again?
It was House Bill 155, and Barbara Hernandez is the one who introduced it. This is an issue that the American Medical Association for Women's Health has deemed a mental health issue, and it is called period poverty.
Wow. Yeah.
And so it's a big issue. And it has to do with lots that young women and low-income women have to deal with on a regular basis.
I'll be happy to do that witness slip. So we'll do that ask today for our county board members and your friends and family to
Yes,
sign on
please.
to myoga.gov and do a witness slip for House Bill 155.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Any more comments or questions? All right, we don't have any need for executive session, so I'll take a motion for adjournment. Bates moves.
Strathman second.
Strathman seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your attendance here today. I appreciate everybody's work.